If you're sitting on the fence and not sure whether your next investment property or home is going to be a brand new one or an existing one, then this is the video for you. So my name's Ben Everingham. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the lessons that I've learned from buying 5 existing properties and building 6 brand new properties myself over the last 10 years. Everyone's got an opinion when it comes to property, and this is just mine, so obviously as always take it with a grain of salt. But I have helped my clients build over 60 properties and buy over 300 existing homes. So this isn't just my experience, this is the experience of working with people to build and buy over $250 million worth of property, which is, I can tell you, a hell of a lot of lessons. Now, there's some positives when it comes to brand new property and some negatives, as well as some positives with the existing property and some negatives as well. So I thought we'd just get stuck straight into it. Now, whether you're buying an existing home or a brand new property, the fundamentals of property investing don't change. Now, according to CoreLogic, Heron Todd White, Michael Matusik's research, and a lot of other people that I follow like Phil Anderson and Fred Harrison, there are a few rules that you follow whether you're buying brand new or existing property. Now, for me personally, I'm just a student of history. These again aren't my lessons, and they may not work in the future, but they have definitely worked in the last 200 years in America, Australia, and Europe when it comes to property. Now, the first one is always to look at houses, because according to CoreLogic, houses in the last 20 years in Australia have outperformed the average unit Australia-wide by over 96%. Now, I always buy metro markets for the same reason, because CoreLogic has found that in 25 years, markets like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane have outperformed the average regional market by 86%. So, houses in metro markets. Now, Michael Matusik did some great research where he found that buying closer to the beach or closer to the city in those metro markets has a value premium. So in context of today, if you can remember to follow those lessons that will get you better longer term gains or give you better chances of long-term growth. And you know, again, as investors, we're not trying to beat the house, we're trying to understand the rules of the game to do as well as we possibly can. Now, if we talk about the positives associated with brand new, one of them that is very, very important to me, because I'm an investor who likes cash flow, capital growth, and making a little bit on the way in, as well as timing, I like the fact that you get higher rent returns on brand new property. Now, that's just because not everyone wants to live in an existing home, and there's not as many brand new properties around. So in a lot of cases, people do pay a premium in terms of the rent on their brand new properties. Another benefit to me is the fact that, you know, in 2017, we get really strong depreciation benefits as investors on investment properties. Now, an example of this is I just completed an investment property where I built a 4-bedroom home and a 2-bedroom granny flat in North Brisbane called a dual occupancy, where all of it was under the one roof line. Now, I've just got the depreciation report back, and this financial year alone, I'm going to save over $7,000. I built another property a couple of years ago, and on that particular property, this financial year, I'm going to save $11,000. So there's a strong depreciation benefit at the moment. Now, obviously that could change or be taken away in the future, but that's a very, very big benefit of building brand new. I also like the fact that when you're building brand new, there may be some short-term equity growth. Now, think about this. Not everyone's in a financial position to go buy a piece of land and build a property on it and not get rent for 4 or 6 months while that process goes through. So, obviously, not everyone can finance a brand new property either. So that means that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes if you know the right people, you can get the land at the right price, you know the right builders, and you can get wholesale pricing on building, you might actually be able to make a little bit of equity. Now, another huge benefit to me personally, is the fact that it's extremely low maintenance. Now, as somebody who's owned quite a few properties, a property management business, and helped over 400 people buy investment properties, I can tell you what, no one likes maintenance, especially when your property portfolio starts to grow. Now, the last thing that I want these days is a high maintenance property. I want to be very active at the start in terms of finding the right market, the right suburb, and buying the right existing home or building the right brand new home. But after that, I want to trust that my property manager has the right product, that I'm not going to have to stress on, and that they can look after it on my behalf like I would want it looked after myself. So maintenance is a huge one, particularly as you start to grow your portfolio. There was one point in time where I owned a bunch of properties all at once. I've sold a fair few of those now to pay off some debt, but you know, I was getting calls or emails literally once every couple of weeks all the way through the year with, hey Ben, can you pay $100 here or $500 here, or the hot water heater's blown, and it just really, you know, messes with your psychology. So I love the fact that a brand new property is extremely low maintenance from that perspective, and you don't really have to do too much for the first 5 years or even up to 10 years with the right builder. Now, some of the negatives associated with building brand new, and there are definitely negatives as well, is that a lot of people in Australia pay too much. Unfortunately, 80% of the brand new property in Australia is sold through what we call property marketers. Now, a property marketer is someone that gets a huge benefit or commission or referral fee from the builder or the developer that you are not aware about, because legally right now they don't have to tell you about it. Now, you might say, you know, property marketers seem like sleazy people in the property space, but you'd be surprised how many of the people that you know are marketers. Sometimes your broker's trying to flog you brand new property, your accountant, your financial advisor, your solicitor, a friend. I've even heard people from churches in Sydney, as part of their counselling to young couples, referring them into an investment property as part of their journey, and then getting paid up to $100,000 commission from behind the scenes. So it's crazy. Unfortunately, 80% of the product in Australia is sold this way. So my advice there is, if you are looking to go brand new, find your own piece of land, find your own builder, and keep away from someone that you're not directly paying, and completely understand how they're getting incentivized to help you do that. Because I can guarantee 90% of the people that I speak to have overpaid for their brand new property, which means less rent return, for longer period of time to get financially free, and just a not very nice feeling in your stomach that you paid more for something than you should. Another negative associated with building brand new is it takes time to build. Now, what I mean there is the fact that when you buy an existing home, it's tenant ready, or it might need a quick coat of paint and some carpet, and then it will be ready for a tenant. But you can pretty much get rent from day one, where with building brand new, it's kind of a different process. Obviously, you've got to buy the land, then you've got to find the builder, then you've got to build the product, then you've got to make sure it's okay. And so it can take time, you know, sometimes up to 12 months for a lot of the builders, unfortunately, for those guys in Sydney and Melbourne. For some reason in Perth and Brisbane, most of the builders seem to get their shit together a little bit quicker. Now, I've got no idea culturally why that is. Maybe it's more competitive in Perth and Brisbane, where a lot of the biggest builders in Australia live. Now, it takes time. Another negative associated with building brand new is it can be stressful. You know, that's the elephant in the room when it comes to property. Everyone wants to learn as much as possible, and I completely get that. But the reality is, buying property can be stressful. It can be uncomfortable. You don't always know that you're buying the right thing at the right price. You don't always know which suburb or market to buy in. You don't always know if it's the right time to even buy a property, let alone the fact that you've got to find the right piece of land, then find the right builder, get the right design, and get all of the certifications, and then project manage that builder to make sure they deliver the quality of product that you're after. So it can be a little bit stressful, but it can also be so fun creating something from nothing. So I have really enjoyed building. I'm building something on the Sunshine Coast at the moment. You can check out the videos on it. It's a property, dual income, 3 bedrooms on one side, 2 bedrooms on the other. I've been doing lots of walkthroughs. You can take a look at the YouTube channel and check that out as well. So let's get into existing property now. So a lot of investors, in fact most investors, focus on or start in this column. It's only as they become more sophisticated or they get sick of maintenance that they start sliding like I did across to the brand new column. So I bought 3 existing properties, renovated all 3 of them before I went on to my first brand new. But I obviously understand in certain markets of Australia right now, there's really strong first home buyers grants around brand new. So maybe if I was looking to do it this time myself, I'd be looking at taking advantage of some of them. So in terms of some of the positives with existing property, it's ready to rent straight away. Now that is a huge benefit. I love the fact that it is tenant ready, or it might need a quick little tidy up or a quick little makeover, and then it is immediately ready to tenant. I also love the fact that you can control the asset. Now what I mean with controlling the asset is, if you're like I said, I'm a very passive investor once my portfolio is set up, but if you're a more active investor like me up front, maybe you can buy like a 3-bedroom home and turn it into a 4-bedroom home. Maybe you can buy a home with 1 car accommodation and add 2 car accommodation. Maybe you can buy a home with 1 bathroom and add 2. Maybe you can buy a place without any al fresco or add any deck or really poor landscaping and clean it up. Or maybe you can buy an unrenovated property and cosmetically renovate it to increase the rent return. They're the things that I love about buying existing properties, because there is potential, if you're an active investor, to add value to the property. And even if you're a passive investor now looking for something that is fully ready for a tenant to move in today, in the future that property is still going to need a bit of an update or a tidy up or a reno, and you can control the asset down the line. I also like the fact that in many parts of Australia, you might be able to do dual income. Now, that might be, buying an existing home, putting up a fence up around that property so that it has its own nice backyard, and then putting a granny flat in the backyard in the future. Now, my strategy personally, like I mentioned before, is all about capital growth as well as cash flow, and so dual income is really nice with that. Sometimes with existing properties, they're also cheaper. So sometimes, particularly in good quality suburbs, on the beaches of Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne, or closer to the CBD, finding a piece of land is really difficult. And so it can actually be quite a bit cheaper to find a nice big block of land with either a nicely renovated or an unrenovated home on it, and getting it for a really good price point. Some of the negatives associated with buying existing property is the fact that there's maintenance associated with it. Now, any property that's more than about 7 to 10 years of age, I don't mind if an investor's been living in there or a mum and dad owner or occupier has been living in there that you buy it from, is going to have maintenance. We tell all clients that in the first year, by the time you get the bond cleaned, the carpets cleaned, all of the compliance stuff like smoke alarms and blinds, you get the grasses tidied up, the landscaping tidied up, and then you do the things that need to be fixed on top of that, you're probably looking at least $5,000 of maintenance in the first year, which is a cost that you don't have when you're building brand new. There can also be structural issues associated with existing properties. Obviously, it's always recommended to put a due diligence clause and a building and pest clause in any contract and work with your solicitor on that. But sometimes there can be underlying structural issues, whether it's something to do with the underpinning, something to do with piering, something to do with the concrete slab or the foundation. There could be some sort of fungal decay in the timber. There could also be some sort of pest issues in the timber. So it's really important structurally to make sure you do your due diligence up front. There could be some sort of engineering overlays or issues. There's all of those types of things as well. So I hope you've got a bit of an idea. Obviously there's positives and negatives associated with both brand new and existing property. I wish you all the best with what you're trying to do, and like I said, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. Now, if you are seriously thinking about buying an investment property in the next 6 to 12 months, I'd love you to duck over to www.pumpedonproperty.com and let's have a conversation about where you are right now, where you'd like to be in the future. We help people buy mainly in southeast Queensland, particularly Brisbane, North Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, which according to Heron Todd White look great at the moment. In the past we bought property in Sydney and the Central Coast when the buying was good down there. But I'd love to talk about your thoughts on brand new versus existing property and what's right for you so that you can buy the highest quality possible asset and get the most of your boxes ticked, which should always be cash flow, should always be capital growth, should always be timing, and if you're working with the right partner, maybe you can make a bit on the way in. But I wish you all the best. Good luck. It's certainly not a year to go rushing out and leveraging up. Things are slowly starting to improve with Liberal getting back in, with APRA relaxing some of their lending criteria, with the Reserve Bank dropping rates. Here's a hot tip for you. I think they're going to drop at least once, if not 2 more times in the next 12 months. I think the cash rate's going down to 0.75%, which means very cheap money. All of this stuff is happening now so that in 2 or 3 years' time, the Australian economy gets back on its legs. So now's the time to start educating yourself. Can't wait to have a conversation, and good luck investing this year.